Very good evening, one and all present here. I'm happy to welcome today's resource person, Azeem Dano, and our core team member and all the participants for today's webinar session. On behalf of the Department of Psychology, the American College Madurai, and all the associating institutions like Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, M.H. Chellamuthu Institute, Madurai, Red Pond Educational and Psychological Research Center, Madurai, Yellow Pond Counseling Center, Madurai, Tamil Nadu Counselors and Psychotherapist Association, Madurai, and Tamil Nadu Counselors and Psychotherapist Association. I welcome wholeheartedly for today's session for our speaker and all the members for today. Now I request our core team member to introduce the speaker to the audience over here. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. It was our immense pleasure welcoming Azeem, sir. He is a trainer and counselor, spirituality, health, and inner values academy in Chennai. Then he did SLM Nursing College, then psychologist in Global Hospital Trauma Center, Mount Abu, then manpower and resource executive in Dubai. Then skills are he developed MSc PG diploma in counseling and prevention of diseases from Annamalai University. Then he published books in instant healing at Labo Press in USA. He traveled to countries like United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, Oman and Muscat, Qatar, Doha, Thailand, and Tobago. We welcome you, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Thank you for this great opportunity. Thanks for the head of the department, Mr. Suresh, and all the team. Dr. Um, Salim is also there, and I was introduced to this forum by Dr. Pandemani. Is from Brahma Kumari's education wing, and it is wonderful job Dr. Suresh is doing for the society. So I thought I will also share my ideas and my learnings. So to start with, so today's topic is prevention and control of neuroses like depression, anxiety, and stress by understanding consciousness and mind, as explained in Indian psychology. So before I start with, I'd like to ask one question with everyone. You can post in the chat message. Do you feel that mind is out of your control? Do you feel that it is very difficult to control mind? You can say yes or no. So, okay. So when you, okay, another question. Do you think there is a mind which is existing separately, which you feel that it is working on its own? Many times you find it difficult to control the mind which work on its own. How many of you say yes? Fine. So by the end of the session, I think you will have some different idea about the function of the mind. Okay. So the next slide, we'll talk about the psychology. What is psychology? So originally, psychology is called a science of consciousness, as the Greek word psychology means science of soul. Indian psychology, explained in Indian scripture, speaks about the function of consciousness to lead a healthy and happy life. And Western psychology is about the science of mind and behavior. So what is the difference? So if you see this chart, Indian psychology mainly focus on consciousness and attention. And the Western psychology, we learn about the beliefs, intention, thoughts, plannings, and the behavior. So here in this session, we will also differentiate what is being taught in Indian psychology and what is explained in Western psychology, and how we can relate the Western psychology with Indian psychology. So this consciousness, what is that consciousness explained in Indian psychology? Okay. So consciousness, as per the researchers, focusing attention on silence can be used as a paradigm similar to sensory deprivation to study consciousness without content. And brain structures involving the thalamus and hypothalamus play a crucial role in the Canon and Bad theory. Accordingly, perceived sensory stimuli arrive in these regions of the brain, leading to simultaneous changes in the body and to feelings. So in Indian psychology, when we say Indian psychology, it's about the Bhagawad Gita, it's about the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, it is about the Vedas, the essence of Vedas, Upanishads. Okay, and Indian psychology, they mainly focus on the consciousness. We will learn what is consciousness and how it can be utilized in our day-to-day life. So this consciousness, what is explained by even the modern researchers, they say, focusing attention on silence can be used as a paradigm similar to sensory deprivation to study consciousness without content. In other words, they say when you experience silence, when you feel silence, it means you are experiencing your own consciousness. And consciousness is nothing but you yourself. So let us understand consciousness and its role in thinking and behavior. This is an experiment. You all have to do this. Just lift any object. Let us say it is a pen or any object from your table, whatever is nearby. Catch hold on any object. See, it's like now, as you are holding this particular object in front of you, you are becoming conscious of this object. So what happened before you become conscious of this particular object, whatever you are holding, you have created thoughts. There was ideas about the object and attention. With attention, you caught hold of an object and you know what is the object because your past memory says this is a pen. And as you hold with your fingers, you are becoming conscious. So this consciousness with attention direct the behavior of holding the pen and you are placing it on the table. So the first thing, what is consciousness? To understand consciousness, when you become conscious of this object, it means your consciousness has become one with the object. You become one with the object and you understand there is an object in your hand, in your finger. So with this, let us continue this experiment. Now leave the object on a table and just focus on any sounds that exist around you. Now you are listening to my voice. And as you listen to my voice, just focus on the silence in between the two sounds. It's like I want you to focus on the space between the words. So as your attention is on the words and move on to the space, you feel the silence. So when you feel the silence, you are the pure consciousness, free from the thoughts and the behavior. So earlier when you held the pen, you were conscious of the object, you are conscious of the thoughts, thinking that this is a pen, you are holding the pen. And as you left the pen and become aware of your silence, the space in between sounds, you have become the pure consciousness, free from the objects. That's what it is explained here. Focusing attention on silence can be used as a paradigm similar to sensory deprivation to study, to experience consciousness without content. So you become the pure consciousness, free from the thought of the pen or thinking or object. So consciousness as it is pure, you can experience in the form of silence. And when you focus your attention on any object, you become conscious of the object. So this is about this experiment. Now, this consciousness, it is synonym for attention. It means as you become aware of this pen object, you become conscious of the pen. Similarly, throughout the day, we become aware, conscious of so many things in our awareness, like people, dreams. When we sleep, we become conscious of the dreams. When we are alert, we are aware of the things around us. We become conscious of the objects. Then we also become conscious of the inner feelings, emotions. So we cannot separate consciousness and attention. It's almost like consciousness is synonym for attention. So we saw that what is consciousness, how we become aware of the consciousness, which the Indian psychology speaks a lot. And now we talk about the Western psychology, where we understand psychology as a science of mind and behavior. In fact, you all know that initially the psychology is known as science of soul or the consciousness. But later on, because initially they thought this consciousness cannot be understood in a proper way, in a systematic way, they slowly changed the definition of psychology from science of consciousness to science of mind, science of behavior. Okay, now let us try to understand how the science of mind we can relate with our Indian psychology. So as per the Sigmund Freud philosophy, there is conscious mind, there is subconscious mind, 12% conscious and 88% subconscious. Whatever we have learned from our childhood days to till date, the various feelings, emotions, all memories are there in our memory. And that storehouse of memory is known as subconscious mind. And whatever we are in the present doing, like we are becoming aware of the objects, you are listening to my voice. So it is the part of the conscious mind. Even this, let us understand more what really mean by the Western science, what they talk about the mind. Now, I just want you to do this. There is an object in front of you. You are looking at the object. Okay, it is happening now. You are listening to my voice. You are looking at the object. So this is called conscious mind in Western psychology, or according to Sigmund Freud. So this conscious mind, you should understand, even to become conscious of this pen, my attention should be there, and I should feel this, and I should become conscious of it. So without consciousness, there is no conscious mind. Okay. So without our Indian philosophy, there is no Western philosophy, Western psychology of mind. Unless you become conscious, unless there is an attention, you are not conscious of the conscious mind. Now next, remember, I just want you to recall what you had for your breakfast. So today morning, what was the breakfast you all had? Just remember. Can you post in the chat box? We like to know what are the different varieties you have. Dosa, idli, okay. Chakra pongal, these are all South Indian items. Okay, fine. So we become conscious. You were conscious of, you become conscious of the memory, what you had breakfast in the morning. So this is called the pre-conscious mind, according to Freud, according to Western psychology. Just today morning you had something, it is there in the memory, very easily you are able to recall. Now come to the third point. I want you to remember the school where you studied, maybe in your younger days. If you are grown up, just find out, just remember. Or others, you can remember something happened very long ago, some 10 years ago. So even now, to remember something happened in the very past, some 10 years ago, what you are doing, consciously you are focusing on the memory of the past and remembering. So this information is called as, is from the unconscious mind as per Western psychology. Even to recall these unconscious memories, you need the consciousness. You need the attention. Without consciousness, without attention, you are not able to remember the past, where you studied long time ago, whatever you remember from your childhood days, you are not able to remember without consciousness and without attention. Okay, now I want you to have some planning for yourself. Next 5 years, next 10 years, how do you like to see yourself? You can post in the chat message, what is your plan? How do you like to see yourself after a few years? As a psychologist, very good. Professional counselor, social worker. Okay. So again, this planning, it is happening because you are conscious of it. You are consciously focused on the memory. You consciously focusing on your future plans. So again, even for this intellect to function, you need the consciousness. You need the attention. Without attention, without consciousness, you don't have a process called intellect. So accordingly, whatever we had experimented now, we understand, or I want you to understand. You tell me, do mind and intellect exist as a separate entity? Yes or no? Post in the chat box. The mind, from childhood days we have been saying there is a mind, I'm not able to control the mind, it is very difficult to control my mind, I think something else, I do something else, as if there is a separate entity existing. So do really, according to whatever the practice we have done, is there any separate entity called mind or intellect, or is it part of the thinking process? You can mention either it is a separate entity, you mention separate entity, or it is part of a thinking process, mention it is a thinking process. And this thinking process is carried out by the consciousness. So as we all experimented now, we saw that either it is a mind, either it is an intellect, it is part of the thinking process. There is nothing called a separate entity called mind or intellect. This you are able to understand, yes or no? So in that case, when you understand, tell me, is the mind and intellect living or dead? Does the mind and intellect, does it have its own consciousness? Yes or no? Or, but see, when you say living, the consciousness, when it focuses on the memories, it becomes a living. But in fact, when the consciousness is not focusing on those memories, mind is not there. Only consciousness is there. Is that right? So there is no separate entity called mind or intellect unless the consciousness associate with the memories, associate with the planning activities. So in fact, if you see this, the mind and intellect are only a shadow of consciousness. If the consciousness is not associating with the past memories, is the consciousness is not trying to plan something with the thoughts, then there is no separate entity called mind or intellect. So it is called as the process of consciousness. The consciousness, when it starts thinking, it is called as mind. When it starts planning, it is called intellect. So that's why our Indian psychology, they focus on the consciousness, unlike our Western psychology. So what is science of mind or science of consciousness? In truth, mind never exists as a separate entity. Hope it is clear by the audience, by the participants. So thinking is a process of mind. Now tell me, thinking is a process of mind or process of consciousness? Please respond in the chat box. Thinking is a process of mind or consciousness? Is the mind thinking or consciousness thinking? Who is thinking? Mind is thinking or consciousness thinking? Yeah,
Consciousness.
it is a process of consciousness. It is not the process of mind. There is nothing called mind to exist. So thinking or feelings or behavior is caused by my consciousness through the attention, focusing on memory of thoughts. Like we practice, like holding the pen, it is a behavior. I am holding the pen and I start writing based on my memories. So it is a process. My behavior is based on my consciousness. It is based on my attention. It is not based on the mind. That is why Indian psychology focus on the consciousness, focus on the attention, and thereby it is easily possible to control our behavior, our thinking process, and what all activities we do. So what is the root cause for neuroses, stress, anxiety, and depression? Is it the consciousness or the thoughts? See, for you to understand, I will tell you, we call it as all this stress, anxiety, depression, mild depression, these things comes under neuroses, neurotic. And when you go into out of control, when you need to take medicine, then we can call it as a psychotic, where it is out of your control. But it starts from, initially we are normal person. We are able to control the thoughts. But slowly we get into trouble. We become stressful. We become anxious. We become worried. We become sad. And it moves from normal to we become neuroses, neurotic. And slowly when this process continues for a long time, we become psychotic. So in the process, as far as you have neuroses, you can get rid of it by means of counseling, by means of understanding. So when you understand that you are the controller of thoughts, you can control your thoughts and thereby the feelings, thereby the emotions, thereby your behavior, then there is no neurosis. And when you are not able to control your thoughts, feelings, emotions, then it leads to psychosis. So now tell me, all your depression, neuroses, stress, anxiety, is it controllable by understanding, focusing on your consciousness, being attentive on your day-to-day activities, being attentive on whatever you want to think? You have the choice to choose whether right or wrong, to choose this pen or some other object. The choice was yours. So when you know it is under your control, consciously you decide what is good for you. But when you know, no, mind is not under my control, it is functioning on its own, it is a separate entity, then you feel that mind is something out of your control, and you don't take responsibility for your thinking process. And that leads to neurosis. That leads to depression, anxiety, worries. So that's why Indian psychology focuses on the consciousness, focuses on the attention, by which you can choose what is good for you and you can avoid what is not good for you. When you choose positive thoughts, you have positive feelings. But when you feel your mind is out of control, then you choose to think, to feel worried, to feel sad, thinking that mind is a separate entity, and you get into neurosis, which leads to psychosis. And then even the psychosomatic diseases, even the NCDs, diabetes, cancer, heart stroke, brain stroke, all these things, it is said, the scientists say almost 70 to 90% are related with the mind, related with the stress. So Indian psychology focuses on the consciousness, attention, where you have full control over what you are going to think. So in that case, you are getting rid of neuroses, you are getting rid of psychosis, you are getting rid of all the psychosomatic diseases, stress-related NCDs. So what is happening when this science of mind or consciousness, which is more important for you? My voice is clear?
Yes, sir. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
All clear.
So now science of mind or science of consciousness, which is more important for you or more important for us to prevent neuroses, psychosis or the NCDs? Please tell me, which is more important, science of consciousness or science of mind? Is it Indian psychology or Western psychology?
Consciousness.
Indian people.
So what is happening? Let us assume there is a car and there is a driver. And we have proved that when you lift the pen, it is the consciousness with attention focusing on the pen and lifting the pen. So the driver is the consciousness, and all the objects, our five senses, our external situations, and even the thinking process, the thoughts, it's all external to the consciousness. So if you compare the driver with the consciousness and all the thinking process, your five senses as the car, whom we need to have more control? Is it the car or the driver? For example, you are sitting in a car and if you want to reach one place, you will inform the driver or you will keep working on the car? So the Indian psychology, our scriptures, our Bhagawad Gita, our Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, our Viveka Chodamani, Brahma Sutras, all these scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, they talk about the driver. They focus on the driver. They focus on the consciousness. They focus on the attention. But whereas the Western psychology, we find that it is all about the mind, thinking process, which is not in control. We feel that it is something, the mind is the controller of everything. And we focus on the car. The Western psychology is much focused on the car, and Indian psychology focus on the driver. So what are the causes of neurosis and psychosis? As per our researchers, depression, anxiety, stress are caused by the long-term association with wandering thoughts. And why we associate with wandering thoughts? We think mind is a separate entity and mind is a separate living entity and it starts thinking. That's why we feel that we don't have control over our thinking process. And that's why when we focus on the wandering thoughts, there is depression, there is anxiety, there is stress. Neurotic individuals tended to report more mind wandering during cognitive tasks, lower working memory capacity, and poor attention control. Stress, anxiety leads to neurosis and psychosis, the frequent occurrence of emotional disorder. Because you feel that you don't have control over thinking and you focus on the negative thoughts and you become neurotic and it leads to psychosis. So the frequent occurrence of emotional disorder prior to and accompanying psychosis indicates that neurosis contributes to the development of positive symptoms of psychosis. So even the psychosis you caused because of your own feeling of no control over your thinking process. So what are the natural qualities of consciousness? So detached, let us practice now. What is our natural qualities of consciousness? Now, just focus on the space in between my sound. Any two sounds, just focus, let your attention, I want you to become conscious of the silent space existing between two sounds. So when you feel the silence, you become easy. In the sense, when I say silence, it means you are detached from your thinking process, you are detached from your five senses, you are detached from your whole surroundings outside. You are detached from the all types of responsibilities of I have to do this, I have to do that. So as you detach from your five senses, detach from your things around you, detach from your thinking process, then you experience that silence, the space in between the sounds. So when you detach from all types of thinking process, responsibilities, you become light, easy like a child. So that's what, when you detach from your thinking process, detach from your five senses, there is a silence, there is peace, and there is lightness, there is love, there is happiness, there is compassion, there is attention, there is lightness, there is sweetness, and there is concentration to achieve everything in this world. So the three main causes of disease as mentioned in Ayurveda are unwholesome contact with the object of senses, intellectual errors, because you think the intellect is something which work on its own, you have intellectual errors. But when you feel that it is your consciousness, it is you who is focusing on your thinking process, then you have control over the intellect and you start thinking right. So but if you don't do that, what happens? Ayurveda says unwholesome contact with the object of senses, the five senses, when you don't have control over it because of base thoughts, wandering thoughts, because you think your mind is doing things on its own, then you lose control over your five senses. And intellectual errors, you start thinking negatively, negative emotions you start experiencing, and you are not able to control your psychological, biological, social factors, because you don't understand what is right, what is wrong, because you remain confused. You think that there is a mind is a separate entity, the thinking is happening automatically, and you remain confused. You don't understand what is right and what is wrong. So similarly, the remedy of all these disorder lies in the balanced use of intellect, senses, and time. And how you will use the intellect, senses, and time in a proper way? By understanding the consciousness, by understanding that you have full control over your thinking process. And this is explained in our Indian psychology, and you will not find this in our Western psychology. That is the difference we find. So when there is practice of using consciousness to control the experience, consciously you choose what you want to think. So then there is a consciousness, consciously you control your experience. We are able to experience more positive feelings and emotions free from long-term effect of stress, protecting self from psychosomatic and mental disorders. So positive feelings, according to Sapolsky, according to his research, when you have positive feelings, when you focus on positive thoughts, when you know that you have full control over having overthinking process, and you just focus on the right thinking, positive thoughts, then what happens? You have positive feelings, and you have positive hormones, good hormones in your body that lead to health, happiness, joy. But when you feel mind is a separate entity, it work on its own, then you allow yourself to focus on the negative feelings, and you have negative hormones, which is imbalance in the hormone secretion in your body, leading to stress and disease. So now let us practice once again. Just focus on the silence, the space in between the sound. Detach from your five senses. Detach from your thinking process, and just start experiencing your inner qualities. See, as you detach from your thinking process, as you detach from the negative thoughts, as you detach from the feeling of responsibilities, you become light. And there is a natural feeling of happiness, joy, something which you experienced in your childhood days. It's a matter of detaching from your thinking process. When you know mind is not a living entity, it is you. When you attach with your thinking process, there is a mind. When you detach from your thinking process, there is no mind. You exist as your own. And then you feel relaxed from your responsibilities. You start experiencing easiness, joy. You become like a child with all those positive feelings. Positive feelings of peace, love, happiness, joy, not worried about the future. There is a time, you fix a time to think about the future. You have a proper time to plan for the future. It is not that always you keep and I'm thinking about it. You fix a time, plan it, and then you detach. Like this person who is with all those problems, he has lost his home, he is even that stitching machine also, you will find it is full of rust. I don't know how he is going to make use of it, but still, so he is so happy because he know, okay, his house has been washed in the flood, his only earning instrument, this machine is there, and he has taken and happily is walking. He is not bothered about what happened in the past. In a sense, he is not attached with the thinking process, he is not attached with the thoughts, he is not worried about the future thinking, the intellect. He is able to detach and start experiencing the inner qualities. He was able to focus on what he is supposed to do now. And Westerners, okay, Westerners understand all the process, okay, but they do not understand all these things can happen by focusing on the consciousness. Westerners know this is what is required. Westerners understand the problems. It is good. And that scientific knowledge has to be combined with our Indian knowledge. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that we are not focusing on our Indian psychology. We are just more focused on Western psychology. We learn even in India, we don't learn about Indian scriptures. We learn about Western knowledge. It is good. Western science is more practical and more research oriented. But the solution is not there with the Western mind. The solution is in our Indian mind, in Indian scriptures. So consciousness and signs of illness, the pure consciousness with attention, that is what we understand in our Indian psychology. It focuses on health. It focuses on prevention of diseases. It focuses on health and happiness. And it, in Tamil, we'll say Varumun Kapom. So prevention is better than cure. So that is what our Indian psychology teaches. Our Indian psychology focuses on the root cause of disease, the consciousness, the attention. And slowly when you feel, as per the Western mind, if you feel that there is a separate mind and there is a separate thinking process going on within your mind, then you get into stress, you get into neuroses, you become confused. Then it also leads to diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and ultimately you also lead to psychosis. You start thinking automatically, you feel you don't have any control over your thinking process. And so what are these types of consciousness? Now we understand there is a consciousness. We become conscious of the object. Now what are the types of consciousness? The Mandukya Upanishad mentioned 4 states of consciousness. The waking state, dreaming, deep sleep, self-consciousness. So in Tirumandiram of Tirumular, I will tell you one information about Tirumular. See, Tirumular and sage Patanjali both did their internship with our Nandi Devar. Nandi Devar is another yoga expert, or he is also devotee of God Shiva. So sage Patanjali and sage Tirumular both learned yoga from Nandi Devar, who is represented as the cow in front of Shivling. In all our Shivling temples, you will find there is a cow. He is called as Nandi Devar. And they learned, Sage Patanjali and Sage Tirumula learned yoga from there. But in fact, you should understand what they speak about yoga. It is not about the asanas. It is not about the breathing. Although they speak about the pranayam, see, when you are in your pure conscious state, your breathing goes automatically. As you breathe in, your belly comes out, and as you breathe out, your belly goes out. That happens naturally. The pranayam happens naturally when you remain in the pure conscious state. So that is explained in Sage Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. But what happens? We focus more on different postures, asanas, and we don't focus much on the intellectual errors. We don't focus much on our thinking process. So types of consciousness. So say our Tirumular, he says that even self-consciousness is divided into 2 types. Turiya is the self-consciousness with ego of self. Like I am the one who is thinking. So that is Turiya state. And Turiya state is you lost in the qualities of peace, love, happiness, joy. Let us try this. Just become aware of the silence and feel the sweetness, feel the lightness, When you become aware of the silence, you are detached from your thinking process. And as you're detached from your responsibilities, anxieties, worries, you become peaceful, calm, and start experiencing the positive feelings of joy, love, happiness. And tell me, you can post in this chat box, when you become conscious of these positive feelings of peace, love, happiness, joy, do you remember anything other than these feelings? Just post in this. Do you get any other thoughts as you focus on these pure feelings of peace, love, happiness, joy? Yes or no?
No.
You're totally detached from the thinking process. So now tell me, when you are engrossed in the feelings of peace, love, happiness, whom you can remember in this state of awareness? Is there anyone in this world with those qualities? Yeah. So naturally there is divine awareness, the divine qualities you start experiencing yourself. But parents, you are not thinking about your parents. You are thinking about the qualities they expressed with you, the love they cared for you. So all those qualities you start experiencing. So that is what in our scriptures we call it as Sat. This is the truth, the purity, the quality of peace, love, happiness, what you experience, that is the truth. And that is your consciousness, Chit. And that is bliss, that is love, that is happiness, Sachidanand. So whenever you experience these pure qualities within you, see, the combined state of consciousness of self and love of God is the ultimate state of self-awareness explained in Bhagawad Gita. And it has to be experienced in all the four states of consciousness. Either you are waking or dreaming or in the deep sleep, you have to be blissful in your awareness. So, and in Raja Yoga, this state is explained as a combination of being incorporeal. Incorporeal in the sense, when you become aware of your peace, the qualities, then you are free from your identity. Like, I am a doctor, I am an engineer, I have this person, I have these many relatives. You forget all the physical consciousness. So that is what it is said, you become incorporeal, detached from all your physical consciousness. And you become egoless. Egoless in the sense, when you become embodiment of peace, love, happiness, joy, you are not aware of who am I, what I am doing, am I an engineer, am I a doctor, or am I a parent? Nothing, everything disappears. So you become egoless, you become humble. How you become humble? Like this. You are smiling, you don't care about your fear, anxiety, worries. You are humble and loving towards everyone. So you become egoless and you become viceless. There is no vice of lust, anger, greed, attachment. You love everyone. Your vision becomes unlimited. You care for everyone. There is no feelings of greed, hatred, jealousy. Everything disappears in that awareness. So what is the location of this consciousness? So location of consciousness, Descartes' depiction of the pineal gland. He says the third eye, the center of our forehead, as the central relay station of consciousness. Even the Cannon-Bad theory, they also say at the near the pineal gland is the place where all your emotions you experience. So the self-consciousness dwells in waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. The eye is his dwelling place while we are awake. The mind is the dwelling place while we dream. The heart is the dwelling place while we sleep. He identifies then, if an individual awakens detached from the threefold state of waking, dreaming, sleeping, he sees no other than the self, consciousness. When you become silent, you are aware, you don't become aware of your five senses. You detach from your waking state. You detach from the dreaming state. You detach from the sleeping state when you become silent. So that is what it is mentioned here. So if an individual awakens, detaches, becomes silent from this threefold state, he becomes the pure consciousness. You become the embodiment of silence, the embodiment of consciousness. So unseen, but the seer, that attention, that consciousness is the one who sees. It is the one who hears. It is the one who thinks. And he is the one who knows everything. So that is the consciousness, according to sages, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And what is the size of this self, consciousness? It is smaller than a grain of rice is the self, similar than a grain of barley, smaller than a mustard seed, smaller than a canary seed, smaller even than the kernel of canary seed. And it is greater than the earth, heavens, than all the worlds. He who glows in the depth of your eyes, that is self-consciousness. So when you are also looking at this pen, who is looking at it? The consciousness. You become conscious through the eyes. You are looking through the eyes. The consciousness which is in the brain. The eye is its abode, either its support, ether is support. He who knows consciousness to be the life of life, the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind. He indeed comprehends fully the causes of all causes. So it is like this. Eyes are the windows of consciousness. It is just located very close to the pineal gland, and it observes through your eyes. It listens through the ear, and it smells through the nose. It tastes through the tongue. But the point is, it is located, the exact consciousness is located at the center of your forehead. If you want, if you just focus on a point for a few seconds, you will understand that you are seeing through your eyes, just behind your eyes. You are using your eyes to look at that point. To understand the screen, you just make a point on the wall, just stare it at for a few seconds. Immediately you will understand that you are a point just behind your eyes, looking, using these two eyes as windows. So because of short of time, I'm not making you do it, but you can practice it yourself. Let us say 1 minute we can practice. Just look at a point in front of you and just focus on the point for a few seconds. And as you focus on the point, you find that you yourself is a point, using your both eyes to see through it. You will see yourself that eyes are different. You are using the eyes to see the objects. Okay. So what are the benefits of conscious attention? Why we want to learn consciousness? Why the Indian psychology talks focus more on consciousness and attention? So cognitive theories of depression posit that selective attention for negative information contributes to the maintenance of depression. So when we know the mind is not a separate entity, it is my own creator. I am the creator of the mind. I am the creator of thoughts. Then I focus on the positive information. Then I can have positive feelings. I can get rid of depression. So when I know that it is me, the consciousness, who creates the thoughts, I would create thoughts only those which are beneficial for me, would reduce the number of thoughts to control stress and anxiety. And other times I remain peaceful without focusing on external objects, but remain focused on my inner silence. So mood and anxiety disorders are associated with deficits in attentional control involving emotive and non-emotive stimuli. Depressive symptomatology is related to general deficits in attentional control. When you don't have attention, you start thinking, focusing on unnecessary thoughts, negative thoughts, which makes you become worried, anxious. This deficit doesn't appear to be driven by distractor inhibition difficulties as we had expected, but by impairments in goal-directed information processing. Because we are not goal-directed, we don't focus. Now you are listening to me, you are completely focused. But other times you let your mind, let yourself focus on unwanted thoughts. You are not allowing the mind, it is your own consciousness, start thinking thoughts which is not going to help you at all. So this, but by impairments in goal-directed information processing in the presence of competing information. This is by Pike et al. And then when there is constant and unceasing remembrance of the self, all bonds are loosed and freedom is attained. Like now we have seen, when you feel the silence, you are detached from your thinking process, you start experiencing a happiness, joy within you. So you are liberated now. You don't have to be liberated sometime in the future. At this moment, the moment you detach from your thinking process, you are liberated. Like the person who was carrying the sewing machine, he is liberated in spite of having all the problems. So the virtue of him who meditates on the kingdom of the self is never exhausted, for the self is the source from which all virtue springs. You have seen that person, in spite of the flood, in spite of losing his home, in spite of not having any future, still he is happy, blissful. So he is liberated when, like the tortoise with which withdraw its limbs on all sides, he withdraws his senses from the sense objects. Then his wisdom becomes steady. Because you know, when you detach from your confusing thinking process, you are focused, you are attentive, and your wisdom becomes steady. You know what is right and what is wrong because your intellect is clear. You not remain confused. So problem solving, observational learning can promote successful and accurate problem solving in a dynamic control task. In addition, it is sensitive to goal specificity effects in the same way as action-based problem solving. So when you have a clarity in thinking, when you know what is right and wrong, when you are not detached from your worries, anxieties, when you are focused on that inner silence and the bliss, happiness, then you know what is right and wrong. You are able to understand the problems and find a proper solution at your best interest of self and others. So what are the other benefits of conscious attention? A study assessing the impact of attention training on information processing in schizophrenia. Even people who went up to schizophrenia, even it happens due to attention, having no attention over the thinking process. So significantly more improvement. These results suggest that it is feasible to use practice and behavioral learning to remediate a core attention deficit in chronic schizophrenia. He who meditates attentive on the ruler, the consciousness is the king, the ruler, the attention of that city, body knows no more sorrow. When you have focused attention in everything, whatever you do, then you have no sorrow because every time you know what is to be done and what is not to be done. To him who sees the self revealed in his own heart belongs eternal peace, to none else, to none else. So creative people are better at adjusting their focus of attention as a function of task demands. This flexibility can confer distinct advantages to creative people in the course of problem solving as changes in the structure of the problem necessitate corresponding adjustment in solution strategy. So when you are able to detach from your thinking process, the anxieties, worries, whatever you have in your mind, then you can creatively think, you can focus on whatever you are doing. So then you have more creativity within you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
6 o'clock we have another meeting, sir.
Yeah, it's
Last
over, madam. This is the last slide.
Yeah,
Stress and
you,
anxiety are also associated with non-NCDs like heart disease, diabetes, cancer. Okay, so this I had explained you earlier. And if you are able to control your thinking process free from stress, then you don't have even the NCDs. So these articles, whatever I have shared with you, it is published. You can see into this article. Maybe I can post the link. If you want to understand more in a better way, you can go to this link, which I'm posting now. Okay. So thank you so much, all the participants and the HOD, Dr. Suresh, Dr. Salim, and all the team members. I thank you all for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I also thank Dr. Pandi Manibhai, who had given this opportunity, introduced me to your platform. Thank you all. I would like to maybe another 4 minutes. If you have any question, you can post in the chat box or you can ask me.
Yeah, it was a fantastic session, sir. Thoroughly we enjoyed. Yeah, participants, you can
Hello.
interact with.
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Shubham.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you so much. A wonderful session indeed. And I'm very much intrigued by your name. I'm really sorry, though my name is also Shabnam. But I would be very happy to know if Quran Sharif also talks about, or some Sufi mystics also talk about something on the same line. At the
See,
same
all
time,
the
sir,
scriptures
I
of the
also
world, whether
feel
it is Bible, Quran, Torah, everyone talks about the peace, love, happiness.
definitely, sir. But then I feel that throughout the conversation, we were interestingly using the word consciousness only, and never we talked about the soul or the universal light, which actually religion talks about. And I
See,
feel,
when you
is there
become
something
conscious,
that
you are the light, you are the consciousness, you are that.
absolutely? But then, is there something? And beautifully, you had carved out the polarity between the Western thought and the Indian thought. But at the same time, this also reminded me of where I read in the autobiography of the yogi, the Sabhi Kalpa Samadhi and the Nirbhal Samadhi. And also the thoughts of even Eric Fromm, where he writes from his own experiences of the Holocaust, that how he used to detach himself from what was happening around him and focus on a different level of thought to protect him from all the what was happening around him. Thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful the way you actually brought the distinction between what the Indian and the Western philosophy talks about. Thank you so much, and especially bringing in the diseases.
Thank you, madam.
Really an enlightening
Thank
session,
you.
and I have to discuss, but I know there is no time, Sunada ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shabnamji.
Yeah.
Shivakumar sir.
Thank you, Mr. Azeem Dana sir. It was a wonderful and really a very meaningful deliberation today, sir, which is really many of us are actually are moving in a dark tunnel, without realizing the point of our consciousness. So what you highlighted is the consciousness, where we detach our consciousness. So the peace, love, and all everything starts. So normally, what some people are people under this depression and all, they were not able to detach these things. So any tip you want to provide on this, sir?
So when people cannot get detached from the thinking process, there we need counseling. So even if I would say, along with the counseling process, if you are able to make them understand the difference between consciousness and the thinking process, and I have seen my own self, I have handled so many patients where there is a very quick recovery from their anxiety and depressions with this understanding of there is no separate entity called mind. It is you who are thinking, it is you who are having full control over the thoughts. If you give this understanding to them, very easily they can come over those problems.
Sir, actually, these instructions are to be given in the conscious mind or subconscious mind, sir, to have more better effect on the patient.
See, in reality, there is no conscious, subconscious mind. It is you are the consciousness. You are just connecting with your past memory, present memory. It is you are the one. You are the ruler. You have full control over it. So there is no like giving some instructions.
So just a change of thought process.
Attention, you are the controller. Wherever you want, focus on the positive things. That's it. There is no conscious mind. There is no subconscious mind. It is consciousness focusing on the memory.
Yes.
Some type of memory we call it as conscious mind. Some type of memory we call it as subconscious. That's it.
Okay. So under that state, they were not able to divert or distract themselves, so that is a problem.
They need some help. There, our counseling will help them. Okay.
Yes. Thank
I
you,
think
sir.
the time is over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Shivakumar sir. Raghuram sir. With this, we can conclude, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Raghuram sir.
It was like raining session. It continues raining, and I was in the meditative state. He created the space. The consciousness, I was really enjoyed, experienced. It's an experiential process. Thank you so much for everyone who is organizing and participating in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Raghuram.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. How we connect our mind, body, and soul. You beautifully explained. Then eyes are windows of the consciousness. It also I open that to everyone. Kindly accept our gratitude on behalf of American College Madurai, MS Chelamuthu Institute Madurai, Madras School of Social Work Chennai, Red Pond Educational Research Center, and Yellow Pond Counseling Center, Tamil Nadu Career Counseling Association, and Tamil Nadu Counselor Psychotherapy Association. We thank you. Participants, we will have yet another beautiful session tomorrow evening. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.